Hello, it's March 2022, and I'm going to talk briefly about something that I've kind of interwoven into other videos over the years and recently, and there's going to be like kind of two parts to it. They're going to connect, but I really want to focus on these two things. I've noticed a lot of people talk about how, as a descriptive, the ruling class, those who impose, have power over the people because people willingly give them that power. And there is some truth to that. But the most important thing that's missed when these people say things like that is that the people, the ruling class, they do what they do and they enforce what they do with the threat of violence. And that is key, how they maintain control, because most people want to avoid any kind of conflict. In today's world, people can't even handle verbal conflict or even a debate, and which differs to arguing facts and fictions, but that's a different topic. So what it really boils down to is, yes, people willingly give away their free will. But the foundation of that is because people are trying to avoid disruption in their lives, the threat of violence. And I've talked about the vulgar display of violence. And every so often, actually a lot of the times, they will use vulgar displays of violence to various degrees to show who is in control. And we see this a lot, especially with people who are wrongfully convicted, falsely accused, and everything else. They're displaying what they're willing to do, the harm that they're willing to impose to maintain that control, where most people are just don't want to deal with it. So they think, well, whatever. And that's why. So there's some part of the truth. People are willingly giving away their free will and so forth, but the underlining base of all that is the fear of violence, and that is really key. Now, for me personally, I don't fear violence. I've said repeatedly, I despise violence. I will avoid violence at all costs, but there always comes a point though where you have to do what you have to do. This is the world that we live in, and even when you don't, I'm going to use an analogy, or even if you don't, they will still impose violence and then say that they did so because you did. For example, that was, I guess, part of the two former officers' testimony, saying this. But they said also that I was cooperative, I wasn't verbally abusive. They had no injuries, etc., etc. So the thing is, you can't be afraid of anything. Fear is not something that you want to completely quash out of your character, because fear, as any emotion, is a tool. And now I'm going to segue into how people post memes and stuff like that, saying no fear, or something related to no fear, and putting the armor of God on and all this other stuff. And strong people don't do that. Now, this is not a diss towards weaker people for doing so. I'm mentioning this because I want to make a point. As soon as you start having to, a lot of people use, I've mentioned this, fictional names, and they come up with a cool name, and they have, instead of using their actual picture themselves, they'll use a really cool photo, say, of a barbarian or something, and saying no fear. Well, perhaps that's who they want to be, but that's not who they are. But that's not the point. As soon as you vent that inner strength, you're giving it away, you're giving it up, instead of keeping that to yourself and letting that strength, positive strength, develop. You give it up by talking about it. Now, when something is troubling you, what do? You talk about it. Say you have a problem with someone or whatever, you talk about it because you release that energy. And that would be a negative energy, and that would be something positive. But people fail to understand the same applies with positive things. And if you talk no fear, positive stuff, you're releasing that from you rather than containing that within you. And again, I've talked about this a lot. When you look at the alpha types, the beta types, and the mega types of people, the alpha types, they don't go around saying how tough they are, or how strong they are. They just are. The other two groups do. And there's different levels within each group. So I just really wanted to highlight those 2 points. How control is through the threat of violence and the vulgar display of violence. And people are releasing their inner strength, the positive things, by talking about who perhaps they want to be. So, accept it or not, take what you will from it. It is what it is. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.